And real life.
Okay, cool. Yeah, welcome to the pod. Yeah, we'll we'll be going through basically what sort of happened in BTC this last couple of weeks. I mean, obviously we've had quite an aggressive breakdown. Probably the most aggressive breakdown that we've had in recent history. Sort of this bear market price action that pushes us into a period of depressed prices. We've definitely seen that, and now we're sort of looking at the market where it's found some decent demand. I think it was probably one of the more stronger, um, I guess, like bounces that we've seen in recent history or in recent times after this sort of like momentum on the downside, which for me I view as this potential hope that a bottom might be forming just based on the strength of the bounce. But I guess like yeah, just looking at the market now, the next question is where do we go from here? Do you see us sort of chopping? Do we see continued momentum downside, or do we actually see some continued momentum after this bounce?
Yep. So I'm kind of also kind of hold the view that we might be putting in a bottom here. Um, just based on the the length that we've traveled from the top to 60K. Basically, it's been 50%.
Mm,
And we're more or less back into this previous range that we've been in before we got the Trump election pump, like this, call it 70 to low 50K range.
mm,
Um, and 60K, I don't know if you remember, but 60K was in that range that was like a quite strong support back in the day. Like whenever we got under 60,
mm,
those dumps got bought up always quite quickly. So that's kind of where, like, you could argue there's a lot of demand. I think there's a lot of
mm,
demand there. So we touched 60K, um, and bounced obviously quite aggressively off that. Was mostly short covering, like driven by like a little bit of spot flows, obviously, but there was a lot of short covering on the way. I think like 30 or 40K Bitcoin in like open interest just got wiped on this bounce on Friday, just from shorts covering. So it kind of looks like we're putting in a local bottom here. That being said, like one of the things that I always remind myself of when the market does look like it's bottoming is, we're almost always going back for a retest. Um,
yeah.
so I wouldn't necessarily start buying here now. I would, wait for the retest. Wait for the low 60s to get tested again, and see if it holds, and then you can start buying, or wait for like a higher low to get established, and then that's also, a decent place to start buying. But yeah, that's kind of how I view it. What's your take generally?
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think just looking at the strength of the bounce, uh, it does look like there's a potential bottom forming, and uh, I mean, I would like to see a retest as well before sort of making these longer bets, and sort of getting that. I guess like it would probably be on the lower time frame, more of a um, like higher low forming, so that the market structure does look a little bit more attractive for you to get long. Um, but for now, I mean, just looking at the market, low time frames, it does look like it's weakening again. I was just one of the things that I also picked up is sort of like the resistance for now looks to be around like 72 to 71K,
Hmm.
weekly open around 70K. So that's sort of where um I guess you could be expecting some form of like sell pressure, or you can also look at it as an inflection point for sort of like higher prices. So I mean, that's what I kind of look in terms of like where the range is sort of going to form this sort of like 70, I guess like early 70Ks to 60K is sort of like where the range is going to form. And yeah, it does seem like I think the selling for now has stopped, and it's probably a place where from if you do see these sort of prices at the lower end around the 60K, look for I think a mean reversion is more likely than sort of like continued momentum downwards. So I think that's sort of the trade that you should be looking for, because it does seem like there is some buyers present. The other thing that I was also going to sort of like point out, and probably leads into our next, I guess, like the fundamentals is, I would say that ETF flows have started to trickle in and be a bit positive from, I think it's about last week Friday, and even just beginning of this week. The flows have been positive, so it is good to see that there is some a bit of demand there. So I guess you're starting to sort of see, I guess, like buyers of coming into the market slowly, which does indicate that it's more likely that we're starting to form a bottom, and any sort of like weakness in price might be good to. Yeah, I guess that any weakness in price might be a good spot for you to sort of like long, and basically expect a bit of mean reversion. So I think that's sort of from a fundamental. If you're looking for the bullish or bullish takes, I think that's really good. But outside of that, if I look at some other interesting data, I mean, I do think there's also a need for like traditional finance, like I guess like CME basis is still not looking attractive, which does take out a form of like structural trade that does bring in bullish flows as well into the market. So I mean, I think we would like to see something happening there as well before sort of like flipping bias completely. But yeah, curious to get your take there in regards to what the fundamentals are looking like in regards to flows, and even I guess like if you are some form of fund, structurally, does it look attractive to put on some form of trade at this level that could be I guess like beneficial for BTC spot price in the sort of like short to medium term?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot in the last few days, and yeah, there's kind of like basically two takes out there currently. One of them is I think who was it? Ari Paul from Block Tower, I think, put it together quite nicely. Said like there's pretty much like a 50-50 chance that either like crypto is just done for good and this is kind of the forever top, or like the top for a very long time, like 5 to 10 years sort of thing, or we're just still in this structural uptrend, institutional adoption and whatnot. And this was a high time frame pullback, but not more than that. And you can kind of argue very well on both sides, right? Like I think the crypto natives will probably mostly argue that it's pretty much over, just from how much shit they had to eat in the last call it 18 months or so. Just horrendous price action. No one's really sold the top. Like everyone was expecting 200K Bitcoin last year, and now we're trading 60s. And like a lot of the macro and longer term like allocator TradFi OGs, they're they're as always like pretty long term, and they kind of still see like the structural uptrend and like the adoption that's still going to happen. I'm really not sure on what camp I wanna be in currently. I like this asset class usually, whenever it feels dead, that's kind of where you should start paying attention to it. And like these are, from like a long-term allocation perspective, probably attractive prices. My problem buying here right now, or even in low 60s, is that there's still a lot of these OG whales selling for one, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. Because there's obviously this quantum FUD out there, and you can discount it for the most part because it's just very unlikely from what we know. Most people don't know shit about quantum, like myself included, but it does feel like it's still 5 to 10 years away. But even if there's like a 0.1% chance that the Bitcoin algo is gonna get hacked and like Bitcoin is fucked. When you're like one of these OG whales who mined Bitcoin in 2010, and you're sitting on like 500 mil or like a billion, and there's quantum FUD, and it's even just like a 1 basis point probability that Bitcoin could get obliterated. Are you willing to risk it for maybe like a double again on your portfolio? But the downside is you're no longer a billionaire, but you're broke. Like I probably would just start selling, right? I think that's kind of what a lot of these OGs are currently confronted with. The early ones, they started selling in the hundreds. And I think there's still a lot more of them who are waking up to basically the FUD around quantum. So that's why we're still seeing these old wallets waking up and starting to sell even at these prices right here. So you kind of have that, which kind of doesn't make me too comfortable buying just yet. And and then from a market, just from basically like from like feeling of the market, and knowing how these crypto cycles like to play out, it's I think like the prices are low, but they don't feel like incredible discounts yet. They don't feel like it doesn't feel like we're at prices that you couldn't imagine that we're gonna trade at ever again. And what what crypto usually does is it goes way higher than you would imagine, and it goes way lower than you would imagine. So it doesn't feel like we're quite there yet. So my feeling around like 60K is it's probably like a nice trade for you buy the retest, and maybe you can hold it up into the high 70s. But I'm still quite unsure whether this is like the bottom for good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear your point. I mean, right now, I think the drawdown is about 50%. It does seem like incrementally, like as we've gone through cycles, that it has been looking better regarding just the level of drawdown. I think the last cycle was about 77%. Before that, about in the 80s. So there is some form of like interesting trend in the sense that maybe that these drawdowns are getting a bit lighter. But I mean, even around like 60 to 65 from the tops, that puts us around like, I guess, like, okay, so there's a little bit lower. But I mean, the other thing I was gonna sort of like pick your brain on is sort of Sailor's, I guess, poor execution, right? I think there was another purchase he made where I think his average entry was pretty like horrific. But this, it does feel like, Sailor's not really gonna be able to sort of like bail out the market, or be that one source of liquidity, or sophisticated market participant that's able to hold up prices. But I guess, like, just curious to get your view on, you know I feel like Sailor might, yeah, I don't think Sailor's sort of going to be someone in a good participant in this market going forward, in terms of he's the way executing recently has also been pretty, it hasn't really given anybody a hope. So I feel like that narrative will probably die and simmer down. And I guess, like, for us, it's just looking for the next narrative. I mean, there's nothing clear at the moment, but for now, it does seem like does Sailor's poor execution act as a headwind for crypto? He can't really strategically allocate even at these low prices. So it does seem like it's very difficult from a fundamental perspective to look forward for some form of like structural or narrative bid in BTC spot around these levels.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not only Sailor, right? It's all of these other debts now as well that are trading at massive discounts to the NAV. Like MicroStrategy is obviously now also at trading at a discount. But there's some of them, the Nakamoto one, which is like trading at like a 45% discount or so, which is kind of pretty crazy. So I think a lot of them will, like, we're entering in like an area, I think, where a lot of them are gonna get consolidated, which means like someone is probably gonna buy them up, I guess, if they can. Thing is, a lot of them are so small, like they're just like a dozen or so of like 50 to 100 mil debts, which is it's kind of almost not worth it to start buying them. For you can make like a few mil on that trade, but I'm not sure if like a lot of people are gonna try doing that. But yeah, it's the thing is with the debts is they're probably gonna have to start selling Bitcoin spot, right, to buy back their shares. And I think some of them have started doing that. Pretty sure, like, I don't know which one it was, but like one of them is definitely doing it. But I think a lot of them have to start doing share buybacks funded by Bitcoin sales, because these discounts don't make any sense, I think. So yeah, I think that's probably gonna start happening, which is just even more sell pressure. I don't think like, at least I don't think MicroStrategy is gonna start selling, like, even though like Sailor has announced it in their guidance that they might be selling Bitcoin spot or derivatives to fund share buybacks under one NAV. But I just can't imagine him doing that. That would just kind of kill a stock, I think. And like the whole narrative around BTC. Can you imagine like Sailor selling? Like, we're probably gonna trade like down 30% on that day if he ever starts selling.
Yeah, if he announces some form, I mean, it's just, I guess, like the structural like flow come into the market that's pretty negative. That would just keep prices suppressed. I wonder what that level is on the chart. I think that's the other thing that's interesting. where do you see a point on the chart where it's like, if we're trading here, this might be the catalyst for this type of narrative to come through?
Probably under 60. I think in the 50s, that's when the FUD is gonna get really loud. Currently, there's probably a little bit of hope out there that we're bottoming, and we'll see how long this level holds. I think it's probably gonna hold for a while, but since we don't have any narratives out there, like, I think we're just gonna chop like 60 to 70, 75, 78 or whatever. And I think sometime this year we're probably gonna trade 50s, and that's where the FUD is gonna get really loud, and that's when people probably really gonna start calling for like the end of Bitcoin period.
Okay, I mean, what do you think about do you think, I was looking at OI just before the pod, like, do you think that it's gone down to a level where you think it's sufficient longs have been flushed out, where you could potentially look at this as like a tailwind, right? We've also got like funding rate quite negative across the board, so that also gives, I think, from a if you're just looking from the perps and the derivative market, it does look a little bit more encouraging on that sense. Does that factor into some form of like narrative? I guess like narrative that could find some bullish momentum, or this is just sort of something that, if you do see some form of like spot driven sell off, you're going to get these micro bounces that are going to be engineered in, but it's not something that you need to really get behind on aggressively until we find a very strong narrative where spot is basically driving the market instead of sort of these short squeezes that I think we're probably going to see a little bit more of, based on how aggressively the market sells off into certain key areas.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit encouraging that OI has finally come down, and we're now in this very choppy regime, probably where OI is just gonna bleed down further. So that's definitely a positive. So you can probably assume that we're not gonna get big liquidation candles like the one we had last week. On the other hand, the market is pretty much only spot driven at this point. And the spot sellers are still there. So is it positive? Yes, but as long as they're spot sellers, it doesn't really matter, I'd argue.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. And I mean, just moving on from there, like, now that we've sort of like we've had a bit of a correction on commodities, like how does the macro picture offer any sort of like restitution for Bitcoin? It does seem like there is like equities could be topping here, which is a bit concerning. It also doesn't seem that like the Fed decisions around like the Fed chair coming in, doesn't seem like he's going to be pushing in liquidity in the market, and that's also been quite important for crypto in the past. So it does look like, just looking at macro and TradFi, that we still have headwinds there. And I think the way that crypto correlation perspective is quite closely tied to equities, right? So it does seem like, if you are seeing that market, that it's going to trickle to crypto, and which is offering another like spot driven headwind, especially if you're sort of looking at your portfolio, and you want to sort of de-risk from a manager's perspective, if you've got positions in spot, is also one of the assets you're concerned about risk markets weakness in general. This is something that you'd also be looking at reducing exposure to.
Yeah. The direction by equities to the new Fed chair have been, it's definitely been interesting. Like, frankly, not a lot has happened. Like, we're still ranging, but I don't know how you feel about it. I don't really like how, like, we've just been consolidating in this range here since pretty much October. It kind of starts reminding me of the range we've been in here before, basically this range right here. It kind of looks a little bit similar to me, and frankly, like the equity headwinds have not been really big. Like, yeah, we like the new Fed chair. He does seem to be a little bit more hawkish than some people might have anticipated. But then you look at Fed funds futures, and they got spooked for like a couple of days, and now trading back at pretty much the same rate expectations than like a month or so ago. So in the end, like nothing really has changed. I guess there's a little bit more uncertainty around what, like, how we're gonna get to those rates, like how much balance sheet is gonna get unwound. But I think generally the US equity market just looks a little bit weak, especially when you compare it to the rest of the world. So frankly, I don't really know what's putting this pressure on it. But I don't know, maybe it's just the continued outflows from the US to to other parts of the world. But yeah, there's definitely some weakness in US equities.
Do you think
and
about?
that's
Do you
yeah.
think? Yeah, and I was just going to quickly say, I mean, I've been seeing. I mean, the reason why we got a lot of sell-off, especially within the tech sector, was sort of like this AI capex spend narrative that the news has really clung onto. Personally, when I look at it, I don't think it's something that is that concerning. I think from an earnings perspective, things were still fine. I think it's just the market's sort of looking for something to find weakness on. And I mean, we've discussed this before about, like, when you're sort of in a strong market, these types of things don't really matter. But when the market's weak, it's really looking for anything tiny to cling on to sell off, right? And
Yeah.
that just is indicative of the market being potentially weak. And I feel like this AI capex spend narrative is a pretty strong example in that sense, that the market's just looking for something to sell off on, and it's not really a strong narrative for the market to find weakness on, but it is. And I think that just sort of show, like, it's just, I guess, like a tech I guess like a sentiment headwind, right? For equity, another reason sort of to be a bit cautious. Besides the technicals, which look a bit concerning on the especially for the Nasdaq, where it's not really looking like it's gonna find demand, or like find bullishness. I'm happy that it is hanging in there, like that it's sort of ranging, but it does seem like it's just a matter of time before we start rolling over, and this sort of like golden correction of, I think people talk about around 10% is like where you'll probably start to see structural buyers come in again on equities. Yeah, basically just it's a ticking time bomb for that type of correction as we sort of range here.
Yeah, it feels like we're just waiting for the catalyst, right?
Yeah.
Like sentiment is already souring a little bit. We just it's the same as for when BTC pumps and then starts ranging and starts ranging for a long time. and then at some point, the catalyst hits, and which in a strong market could have been discounted or ignored by the market, but then suddenly people are waking up and figure that they rather take some profits than risk it all, and that's kind of how US equities feel like here, especially since the chart doesn't even reflect like the whole weakness of US equities. Like they've obviously been propped up even by a weak dollar. So if you chart like the S&P against the euro, for example, yes, euro. Yeah, here we go.
Oh wow, yeah, wow.
No, my bad. That was not the right ticker. that would have been really bad. See me. It was like some random stock. Fucking hell. Have I saved? I've got it saved. Like we're chilling at the highs, but against the euro, like the S&P basically hasn't really made a new all-time high. We're flat since like the last 14 months here on the S&P.
I mean, that's quite an interesting take. I mean, what do you think about? I mean, the other thing I was also going to quickly just touch on is commodities, especially gold. Looks a little bit. I mean, looking at the gold chart today, it does look encouraging. Like there's still going to be this run on gold, or like it's sort of getting ready for the next leg up. I think silver's been a little bit more concerning, and I think that's just a factor of how leveraged and speculative this market is. But gold, because of I think it does have a very strong narrative currently going for it. Does look like it's about to continue on its next leg up. Right now, it's sort of looks like it might be closing around the previous week highs, and normally, like sort of if you see high time frame closes there, it looks like it's going to be continuing its strength and potentially making new highs. But curious to get your view on gold. I mean, we've had a very strong correction, and the market's been able to find demand, and it's now sort of like looks like it's going to continue trending. Do you think do you think this is something that's going to continue in terms of just strength in commodities, especially gold? And well, you know what, my other thing that's pretty interesting is like what happens to the rest of the market in commodities. I think gold will obviously pull up some markets, but the correction has been a bit brutal, especially for silver. It doesn't look like it still looks like it has a lot of work to do in regards to sort of getting back to the strength that it had.
I don't really have any quantitative arguments to back this up, but I'm pretty confident like gold has topped. Silver is definitely topped. It's just like a very, very typical kind of setup for me when I look at this chart. It's you get like a parabolic run up, and then seemingly out of nowhere, like the market just flushes down like really aggressively, and everyone is kind of getting shocked by how volatile this thing can be. And now we've obviously found like some demand and like bouncing back a bunch, but we're doing that on low volume. So when you look at the volume here, we've had quite strong buying on the way up, and even stronger volume during this correction. And now as price starts grinding up again, you can see how volume is declining and declining.
Off.
Yeah. So that kind of strikes me as like a typical setup where we're gonna start forming like a lower high, either here or like at 52 or at 53. Maybe we're gonna come back all the way back to the previous high, and then we're gonna top for real and start going down more.
Yeah.
I think it's even more obvious on silver that some of the precious metal strength is just gone now. I think, especially since retail is much more involved in silver, you kind of could expect like a strong imbalance on silver. Just because there's probably gonna be like a lot of degen retail buyers who are gonna start buying the dip on leverage, and bring it back up again. But we're not really seeing that. This is like a very weak bounce. So
Yeah.
that kind of just tells me the bid is gone for now in precious metals, and we're you can kind of start looking for good short setups.
Yeah. I like that take on the market. Basically, yeah, if you sort of see basically look to short any strength, right? And I think your view on just looking at the volume and structurally how things have been going with the correction, and you can just see how weak the demand has been compared to how it was on the way up. That just shows that any strength that you see in this market, be very, very cautious. And if you're more of if this market, look for mean reversion and continuation downward, and you should basically take that correction as the market structure break, and now it's time to look for shorts going forward. I think that's for me that's like pretty clear. Maybe something I'll also play by myself. The other, just wanted to go through options on BTC, because I think besides sort of the market showing extreme weakness, the options market for crypto, that was pretty entertaining in my opinion, in terms of just how aggressive the vol bid came into the market. I feel like there was a very strong pricing of options, and strong volatility strength. The other thing that's pretty interesting is just how aggressive Skew currently is, and I think that just shows like how cautious and concerned the I guess like we could call it like an institutional flow in crypto is currently for this market. But we've been speaking about how undervalued volatility on particularly ETH was, and we've seen this sort of trade play out quite nicely. Curious to just get your view on currently what trade is currently existing in the options market. Like after this huge move, do you think we're gonna get this like structural, what we're kind of used to seeing, like vols bleeding after like that huge spike, or do you still think it's good to be cautious being short vol? Because I mean, when the market did go down to where it was, we were seeing sort of like really low strikes on puts, catching this crazy vol bid, and it seems like even though like right now, if you look at Skew, it's very attractive to be short puts, and even if you're trying to target those like far out strikes, there is if vol spike aggressively, you're still going to be caught on the wrong side of the trade. But yeah, curious to just get your overall view on the options market on crypto, and whether you see any interesting trades right now with vols sort of being in this elevated state.
Yeah, did you see that big put spread buyer on IBIT? Like, I think it was like a week or two ago, like pretty much right before the sell-off. Like that guy printed hard.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it was, I mean, it seems like, I mean, if you were sort of like long long sort of delta, long vol, it was a really good trade. I mean, we've been speaking about just because skews are elevated, that spreads are the right type of trade right now, to push into that wall, to play the breakdown, and it worked out pretty well for a lot of people. So I mean, it's the type of trade that, as I said, that we thought was quite attractive, and happy to see someone have printed there. But I mean, now we're sort of into that phase, after, like, that type of trade has played out. Is this now a safer place to sort of like short puts? Do you start looking at shorting, puts at this level, with this high skew, with vol being this attractive, or is there still some form of like structural risk in the market that could sell vols like quite aggressively, roof, like we saw when the market started breaking down?
Yeah, it's super interesting that that Skew is still this negative. Like we're we had recovered like after we got the bounce, and now the Skew levels are deeply negative, even like on the monthly expiries, which is kind of crazy to see. Can't remember the last time I saw quarterlies, like look at June at like -8 Skew. That's pretty crazy. I really can't recall that happening like since FTX pretty much.
Wow.
So options market is obviously speaking like a very clear language here still, which is more downside to come. So I wouldn't necessarily try to fade that. As we've said before, wait for 60K to get tested again, and if it holds, then maybe you can start taking advantage of this negative skew, and maybe sell some put spreads or something, or if you want to be aggressive, go for some risk reversals. But I wouldn't necessarily put on a plus delta position here. As for like the vols, it's like, I think if you want to sell volatility, you can maybe do so, but I would only do it on a payoff basis. So I would just try to maybe position in some strangle type position. When BTC is in the low 70s, you can start selling some calls. When it's in the low 60s, then you can start selling some puts maybe. And but I wouldn't like sell vol here and then delta hedge it as like a IVRV kind of arbitrage. Like here, like in BTC in the mid 50s, it's feels like it's like that's pretty much like the correct price for gamma here. Don't think that there's much to arbitrage. I don't know how you see it, but like BTC is definitely gonna be a little bit more volatile, even though we're gonna consolidate. It's definitely gonna have some stronger moves throughout the week. So at 55 vol, you're expecting like a 2.9% daily move. That feels accurate. I wouldn't try to fade the options market there. And for me, it's pretty much the same on ETH as well. ETH a little bit more beta. It's trading in the 70s. That also feels pretty much in line.
Yeah, I think the tricky part is, the market the range hasn't been established, right? And I think that's probably the high, like a very strong reason to be cautious, trying to position shortfall. I think what you're kind of looking for when trying to put that position together, usually from a price action perspective, is at resistance, are you going to get like momentum, or are you going to get mean reversion? At support, are you going to get momentum or mean reversion? And sort of momentum is going to sort of expand vol, right? You're going to see a strong spot vol correlation. And then, you know, if there's mean reversion, that's where you'll probably see, okay, people are going to start fading these price moves, and it's sort of going to compress fall. And I think for right now, we haven't really seen that choppy price action that justifies, you know, putting that type of structure in place. I think we need to see the range form a little bit before,
Mhm.
you know, getting comfortable. You know, I would love to see some retests as well. Before sort of like going completely short fall. So I think, you know, probably the guidance here, if you're looking at our options, is just to sort of like sit and wait
Mhm.
for now. Like there's no proper trade right now, but wait for the retest, and then, you know, start looking to see, okay, well, are we going to see some momentum? Look at some of the technical data, like look at the spot flows at the time. Is they sort of the ETF flows? Are you seeing some form of like buying or spot volume coming in? Are you seeing shorts getting too aggressive and funding rate too negative? Then and if you see that the market's about to mean revert, that's probably a good indication for you to start tactically looking to sort of like short vol. That might be a potential catalyst for the fact that, okay, you know, we're gonna like this is the range that we're going to actually be stuck in for a while. Then you can go for it. But I guess for now, it's just like, yeah. I mean, you could probably just play delta as well, right?
Mhm.
If you
Yeah.
really want to, just with spreads, try and I think that's probably the only trade that I would look at, like just going for these spreads, try and be as Vega neutral as possible. Just playing the delta. That's probably the only trade I kind of see. Just sort of play this market grinding down and up with spreads in order to get some
Yeah.
P&L. But then once the market has sort of come to these key levels, which we think are sort of 70, you know, low 70s to I guess like the low 60s, that's where you can start maybe putting a more like vol centric trade, which would be sort of like selling, you just being short vol and collecting some premium there. So I mean that's sort of like my view on what looks attractive. Don't know if you have anything else to add there. I was gonna sort of ask you about your view on like.
I had like a trade idea for options. So if I had to put on a trade right here, I would maybe put on some like 1x2 put spreads.
Mm,
You know, sell like a close like buy a close strike and sell to further out of the money strikes.
yeah.
Since you're then you can kind of capitalize on like very elevated skew
Mm,
and have some, you know, you're essentially playing for payoff, right? So if skew comes down or if IV comes down, then you know, you can get out of that position early, and you know, you're gonna make a little bit of money. Or you know, let's say you know you're just expecting the market to chop a little bit and, you know, go down into the low 60s and stay there. Then you can kind of play it for payoff, and you know, you're gonna own like a 65K put and sell like 260s or something, and then hope that the market you know, is gonna expire somewhere between 60 and 65, and then you know, you play it for payoff, and you can probably make a little bit there and not have too much downside risk, since you know, since you're already playing that 65 to 60, and then under 60, you know, you probably have some strong support for
mm.
for at least some time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I like the 2x1s. Sort of like allows you to capture like the elevated vol, but sort of, I guess, like you're a little bit protected with the strike and you're a bit far out the money, so it does make sense. So yeah, I mean, it's I think it's a pretty decent idea. And I guess, like, from an alt, do you? I was just curious to get your view on, like, just specifically the majors, right? Like,
Mm.
where do these things bottom, right? Where are the major altcoins at a discount? I know with you've got a very strong view on ETH, probably at around, like, the low 1000s. I think that's where you think that's like a good spot buy. But yeah, just curious to, I think it'll be pretty good guidance in regards to, yeah, where do you think that these majors that are a little bit easier to hold, I think, from a spot perspective, where do you think that they trade at a discount? And you think that these are sort of like good spot buys, or yeah, do you not look at these and then maybe we can go and sort of like cover what we think are pretty cool, which I think is sort of like Hypemon and Light. But anyway, yeah, you can just give me your
Yeah.
feel on, like, where you think this thing goes.
Dude, like, you remember, like a couple weeks ago when we were talking, and you know, we were talking about ETH, and it was like trading in the 3000s. I was like, dude, like, ETH is completely trading at the wrong price. Like,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be even be trading at 3000. Like, now we're trading at 2000. And I kind of still hold the same view. Like, this is an asset that's just been pumped and dumped. And
yeah,
like, the dump is not done yet by any means. Like, Tom Lee has pumped this worthless asset to 5,000, like tripled its market cap. It's retraced almost the whole pump. Doesn't have a narrative. Tom Lee hasn't sold anything, so he's, you know, taking like 4 to 5% of supply off the market, and like, we're trading pretty much at the same prices. He's gonna have to sell at some point. Like, my downside target for ETH this year was like 1,500. Kind of
we've
depends
almost,
on like the rest of the market, but like, call it like my, you know, 18-month thesis or so. Like, ETH is gonna trade under 1,000 again. Like, this thing is
okay,
still extremely overvalued. There's no narrative. There's not a lot of users. And yeah, like, this thing just retracing this whole run up just tells you everything. Like, there's just no natural buyer for it. There's only natural sellers. So that's
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think I was even looking at sort of ETH's TVL. Like, that's been a very strong narrative for ETH. I think it's just how much is being secured by the network, and it has sort of like, it's been pretty dismal. It's just been, yeah, it's sort of been trading very low. I mean, I
Holy
remember,
shit, I didn't know that.
yeah, it's
Like,
very, very bad.
we're at like 2022 bear market levels.
Yeah. So I think that's like, yeah, one of the things that you could sort of, I think it's sort of like one of the strong, I wouldn't, it's not a catalyst, but that's one of the strong proponents for ETH, or like why it's so popular, and that the core metric that drives that drives the attraction, like why it's attractive for adoption, is it hasn't been looking good. It's been trending lower. I think the only thing that can sort of bail it out is sort of like this RWA narrative, which, you know, it hasn't really caught traction in the way, and, you know, maybe
I mean,
stable
like,
coins,
hype
but
is eating that all up, right?
yeah.
Pretty much.
And yeah, I mean, yeah, hype is not looking good, and I think You've also started to see like Vitalik is trying to do something interesting there. They might be a potential trade with. I know that there has been murmurs about trying to make ETH some form of like quantum resistance or like introduce some change. That could potentially be
Oh,
a catalyst, but those are
they're
sort
not
of
quantum
far
resistant
out.
resistant yet. I thought they. Oh, really? I thought actually
Yeah,
they
no, that's
were.
still in. I think yeah, that's still sort of like in discussion. um, but yeah, yeah. I mean, ETH is it's a bit difficult from a narrative perspective. What do you think about Sol? I mean, if ETH, do you think Sol is if ETH is bad, like how is Sol in
Yeah, Sol is worse.
comparison? Yeah. So that means yeah, Sol could go.
Like
What would
Sol,
your
like
downside target be for Sol, right?
the thing is, Solana is the retail casino chain. It's
Mm,
it's essentially the chain for the meme coin casino, right? Like besides that, there's not really any applications on Solana. Like the whole RWA institutions tokenizing their whatever, like
not touching
ETFs or
that.
something. Like they're doing that on Ethereum, and Ethereum is already not doing well. Like they're not doing shit on Solana. There's also not a lot of stablecoin transactions or whatnot on Solana. It's pretty much the meme coin chain, right? And meme
Yeah.
coins are dead. Like Trump killed that market. So I don't see any point in owning this thing. Plus, like the chart now looks horrendous, and this does not look like a bottom by any definition. I don't know where this thing could maybe bottom, but definitely not here. Maybe 50s, maybe lower.
Yeah. I'm just trying to what would you say because it's a meme coin, what would you say is the metric there? I mean, for ETH it's TVL. Would Solana just be DEX volume? Like is
Mm.
that what you monitor? Like how, you know, maybe it's transactions. But yeah, I mean, just curious, what would you what's the one metric that could sort of like sum up how I mean, I would say it's DEX volumes, but
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
probably like pump.fun volumes, right?
Yeah.
Um, the thing is, do you believe that meme coins are gonna make any significant comeback, like ever?
I mean, I think I do think it's there's always going to be that hype and hysteria will always come back in some way or form. Like I think every cycle has had its sort of like meme coin and mania.
Mm.
Um and I guess it's similar to like sort of I think people like gambling is probably like one of the most attractive things about like crypto. So it's like you will eventually find some interesting meme coin within like internet culture thing. I mean, the other thing that could be interesting is just like prediction markets as well. Like where does where does that narrative sit? Because it seems like all these I'd say like listed institutions like Robinhood and Coinbase are really pushing hard into this market from an investment perspective. Um, so it's like, is this sort of going to be the new narrative? And what, token chain, where does that sort of like lie within the sphere? Because obviously with memes, it seems like it's Solana. DeFi, that's probably like Ethereum.
Mm.
Like where do prediction markets lie in sort of the sphere? And I mean, it's something that I need to also kind of think about. And it's probably no clear answer, but that's also something that might be a bit interesting um, to sort of look at.
Mm.
But yeah, I like looking at sort of like pump.fun. I mean, from a revenue perspective, it does look like things are quite low in that sense. There's not a lot happening. And I guess like yeah, Dex volume has also like come down quite a bit. So the fundamental metrics for Solana, if you're looking at pump.fun volume as sort of the metric, are also at the lows. So, I don't really expect much for Solana there. And I think that's sort of the metric that you watch if you're looking for some form of like, I guess like bottoming or mean reversion. Just seeing a pickup in volume, a pickup in sort of like meme token culture, then that's where you sort of like become bullish on Solana again.
Yeah, I kind of think memes were just this cycle's NFTs, and
Okay, that means
like
it's gonna,
because it's kind of just the same dynamic, right? Anyone can launch it. It was like a lot of hype around it for, again, a worthless asset, and then like too many of those were launched at the same time, and then kind of just liquidity dried up, and now there's the hangover, and things got really extractive. So I don't see like memes coming back, to be honest. I think like retail got completely screwed on memes. Like no one actually made money on memes except for like the insiders pretty much, and like a very very few lucky ones, like the bonk guy, but I think even that guy got liquidated or something. I remember when everyone was yelling at him on Twitter, like even the big accounts were yelling at him when he was like up 10 mil, and like please close.
And he's not interested. Yeah, it's quite crazy. Similar to sort of like, I guess like the James win, where it's like, dude, just take some off the table, man. But hey, dude, people want to make $1 billion in one trade, which not even like the biggest hedge fund managers would. Like that type of trade is not available like all the time. Like, and it's crazy that you can make that sort of like, I mean, people are that confident in making that type of return on one trade in crypto. But
speaking of James Wynn, like, why do you think like all of these whales continue trading on Hyperliquid? Because it seems that it's always the same outcome, right? Like whenever someone deposits like a lot of money and starts putting on a big position, or ran up like a small account into like a very big account, eventually like the market will hunt them, right? And like I think there's basically no precedent that any of these big accounts came out alive. Like essentially everyone got hunted. Like the last one was the Garrett Bullish guy, who ran it up from, I don't know what it was, like from 50 to like 150 mil or something, and then he deposited more, and like in the end, like he got hunted on his 600 or 700 million ETH long, got liquidated at 2200, and was like down like a quarter bill. Like why do you think like everyone keeps trading there?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just ease of access. I mean, where it does seem like that's the case.
But like, don't these people have like a fucking Binance account?
Yeah, it's very difficult to make. Maybe it's an ego thing, because obviously these trades get highly publicized as well. So that could be it. Maybe if like the Hyperliquid team, I think they are based in Asia, they're able to sort of create a personal relationship with some of these traders. I think I was a tweet that was speaking about one that was covering one of the traders on Hyperliquid and where he's basically trading out of, and it's in that region. So maybe it's something like that. But yeah, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's like, why would you want your stop to be hunted, especially since those liquidations can cause quite a lot of, like, it's just a target, right? It's a very, very good target. So why do you put yourself out there with the size of the position that you also have on, which is crazy. I don't know. It's very, very hard to justify for sure. But But it's I mean the other thing I was gonna quickly say is like hype is hype didn't really get sold during this weakness, right? It does seem like it's got some form of like structural bullishness built in, that's backed by like fundamentals. It's really sort of like trading on its like trading. Yeah, it's sort of it's just doing its own thing. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not. I mean, would you look at buying it here? I mean,
I think the treasury company for Hyperliquid, they just announced today that they bought like 130 million at an average of $26. So
okay, yeah,
which was I mean, they initiated the run up essentially, but it kept running by itself, which is quite nice. So I would say, I mean, they're probably gonna start deploying like the their second bullet quite soon. So yeah, you can probably play it from for upside here. Yeah, I mean, it looks good. It's the only thing in crypto that has a narrative. The volumes look good. It has good traction for its newer markets, for like the TradFi markets. There's quite some volume, especially like on the silver contracts. There was crazy volume that actually influenced like the TradFi silver markets, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, like hype. Like I wouldn't want to trade on there, but it's a good asset to own. It's just like a good casino to own. And I don't think that the traction is gonna slow down. And I think that that hype treasury company is actually gonna get some good flows into it, because there's no way to buy hype for a lot of people. I mean, you have to buy this thing like on chain, right? Like how many funds can access hype? Not a lot. So I would expect like significant demand for that hyperliquid strategies vehicle, which is then going to translate into more flows. So yeah, I'm guessing like buy hype on any dip, or buy it here and short some other altcoins against it.
Cool. I mean, yeah, good. That's all I wanted to sort of cover from an altcoin perspective. I don't know if you wanted to touch on others, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm still keeping XPL on my watch list because you remember when we were saying like at 10 cents, it might look interesting because that's kind of the only level that you could long it at, and now it's at 8 cents, and doesn't look like it's gonna stop. I think we're trading at like a 160 mil market cap now. I don't know how deep it's gonna go still, but maybe at 5 cents. That's where value is. Who knows? I don't know. If, I feel like at some point this thing is gonna bounce, but I mean, God knows. And I mean, Monad just looks like there's truly no sellers left on this thing. Whenever there's like someone coming in and just buying like a mil or two, just rallies like very easily. So whenever Monad is down like a couple percent on the day, like today, feels like a good bet, to start accumulating. I don't think it has like a lot of downside left. Not really a lot of sellers. They've raised like a shitload from VCs. Like their treasury is much higher than their market cap, and seems overall that it's like a decent project. A lot of good backing by VCs and influencers. But yeah, I think when the market comes back, it's gonna be one of the strong performers. So
Yeah.
Yeah, might want to own some.
Okay, cool. All right, I think that'll be it. Yeah, I guess we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cheers.